Well, even though it's the international break, there's still a bit of news knocking around. Big Phil is raging. Ross is already back from international duty, and Diomande has switched international agencies, which comes as a little bit of a surprise. So let's have a look at this news. Let's start off with the most obvious news, which is around the game postponement at the weekend, which none of us wanted because it just provides a bit of a headache, in terms of looking at when can this game be fixed in. There's a very strong rumor that they're going to sort of crowbar the game in between before the old firm game, which is a very SFA thing to do. We're going to look at that shortly. But Big Phil, made a great point as regards standards of pitches in the top flight. Now, Dundee have, for the fourth time, that's right, the fourth time this season, been unable to fulfill a fixture due to the state of their pitch. Now, for a team that is in the top flight of a domestic league, this is an utter joke and more resembles a pub football team than a professional football team. So what's the issue? Now, according to reports, Dundee are refusing to undertake groundwork and drainage work on their Dens Park pitch because of the fact that they want to build a new stadium and they want to keep all the money for that. They're also trying to con the council out of money to build that stadium for them. So that's the first thing. That's the first reason why. However, when you consider that, there are minimum standards for things like, flood lighting and support facilities, etc., you wonder why the SPFL are not insisting on minimum pitch standards. And if the pitch standards are not fulfilled, not allowing teams to come into the SPFL, surely there should be entry requirements into the league, as there are in England. There are minimum entry requirements to get into the Football League, and there are minimum entry requirements to enter the Premier League as well. Now, the SPAFL and the SFA did reveal yesterday that there will be an investigation into the postponement, although I'm not expecting anything to come of it because, let's face it, the SPFL and the SFA are about as much use as windscreen wipers on a submarine. So let's have a look at what it says. This is what they released yesterday. It said an SPFL spokesman said the postponement of any match is disappointing given the impact it has on supporters. This is particularly disappointing given the fact it was live Sky Sports match and the proximity of the match to the split. The SPFL will be investigating the circumstances surrounding this postponement. I think one of the big things, obviously, is the postponement around the split because, with all fixtures have got to be completed by the time the league splits. It is therefore a headache for the league to try and then cram all these fixtures into a limited amount of time. Fixture lists are planned, obviously, with the European nights. Obviously, the benefit is that the benefit in a kind of way is that we're not in the Europa League anymore, though it's not really a benefit because I'd rather still be in the Europa League. Of course I would, but this is just the way it is at this moment in time. So, if we look at what Rangers have got between now and the split, and we look at what fixtures are remaining for Rangers to play before the league goes into this ridiculous split that it does. I really don't like the split. I think it's an absolute joke. I do think the league does need reforming. But this is the fixture list we have. So it's Hibs next up for Dundee. Then it's Celtic on the 7th, Ross County on the 14th, and then it is Hearts on the 21st. Now, the dates that have been suggested for Rangers to complete this fixture are as follows. Now, this is according to the reports in the media this morning. So the reports suggest the 2nd or 3rd of April. So somehow crowbarring it in between the Hibs and the Celtic games, which I think is a very strong likelihood, as the SFA and the SPFL will do everything to give Celtic as much of an advantage as they can going into that game. The other dates suggested are around the 9th and 10th of April. Post Old Firm, pre-Ross County. They are the suggested dates. But looking at those 5 remaining games, because you do have to take into consideration that Dundee game, there are 5 games that Rangers do need to take 5 wins from, 15 points maximum. That needs to be the aim for the club. Now, if it is that the game is sandwiched in between the Hibs game and the Celtic game, this is very short notice, obviously. I think obviously having the international break does obviously help with that scheduling, gives them time to think about it. But in my personal opinion, that would be utterly disgraceful, not giving Rangers and Celtic a level playing field going into that Old Firm game on the 7th. However, let's face it, that's what the SFA and the SPFL tend to do, is not give it a level playing field, because That's the SPFL and the SFA. Now, Big Phil also has had his say on this postponement. This is what he said. He said, I think it's a very important thing for the future that a league thinks about how to raise the level of pitches and put standards on that like they do on other things, which is, I don't think, just getting at the Dundee pitch. It's also perhaps getting at other pitches we've had to play on this season. You know, St Mirren's pitch obviously was poor. Johnston's pitch was very poor. You know, there does need, I think, to be a real look into having a basic standard of pitch. Also, you know, the plastic pitch debate as well. You know, there's the debate over that. It is realistically an argument that needs looking at. Big Phil went on to say this. He says they have standards with things like lighting, for example, to have a good broadcast of the game and to have a good product. Sure, the lights are really important, but even more important is the quality of the pitches, I think. This will be the only pitch in all the leagues in Scotland where a game was postponed. That was in reference, obviously, to Dundee's pitch. And Big Phil is absolutely spot on. You know, he is absolutely correct. You know, there does need to be a basic standard. There should be a basic rule laid down as regards pitches, as regards the game. Now, I know what those across the city and those of a non-Rangers persuasion are going to say, or typical Rangers fans whinging, crying because it's happened to them. No, it's a response of somebody who wants the best for this game and this league. You know, if we are to, in the future, get better TV deals and a better standard of football, you know, it's not just looking at, you know, teams on the park. It's about looking at infrastructure. It's about looking at, you know, what is the standard expected. It's about looking at giving the players and the league the best possible opportunity to market itself. And if the pitches are of insufficient quality, which leads to bad football, if the pitches are so bad that it leads to postponements, it's going to lead to TV companies. It's going to lead to others not wanting to watch, attend, pay sponsorship for the league. And this is a wider issue. It's not just about Rangers v Dundee or Dundee v Rangers being postponed. It's about the situation where, you know, this is a real issue for the Scottish game. You know, that it cannot be marketed in such a way that the league is a joke, that the league needs a major looking at. You know, you look at the league as it stands at this moment in time, and this split is a joke. The tidiness of the league is a joke. You know, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, you know, this league should be massively overhauled. Now, it should be an 18-team top league with teams playing each other twice and twice only. 17 games, therefore, home, 17 games away, 34 games for a season. Basic pitch standards, basic lighting standards, you know, to try and really give the game an opportunity to be more exciting and more interesting. And I think also, you know, and as much as this might, you know, work for us, reducing the amount of times that the Old Firm team, you have to play the Old Firm teams, can only be good for opposition teams because of the fact that they pretty much sort of, but I don't know, this is arrogance. They kind of bank on, well, there's 4 defeats there, there's 8 defeats there because we're going to lose all our games to Celtic and Rangers because they've got the bigger budgets. Therefore, straight away, that's 24 points we've dropped. Therefore, you know, it can lead to a league that is perhaps artificially more, but at least it looks a little bit more competitive on paper, therefore meaning that it will be more marketable to the media. It's basic standards. And you know, I'd love an opportunity to go up there and really shake things up. I'd love an opportunity to run the SPFL and the SFA and then go in and say, right, we're going to do this, this, and this. We're going to get rid of this. We're going to change this. We're going to move this around. We're going to insist on this. We're going to, you know, have this sort of league. That for me would work and would work a whole lot better and make this product a whole lot more marketable. And that's what it's got to be about at the end of the day. Surely that's all we all want is a better product on the field and a better game and a better league and a more competitive league with higher standards. That's what we want at the end of the day. And the SFA and the SPFL have got to take a long, hard look at themselves and think, who are they protecting? Yes, I know they're protecting that lot across the city the majority of the time because they love them for some unknown reason, or because I think Lowell runs the SFA or the SPFL and they hate us, which we know, but something needs to be done. Well, let's move it along a little bit. Yes, it is the boring international break, guys. It is a time where everyone just goes, oh, for fuck's sake. Personally, you know my feelings on international football. I think it's a joke. I think it's an absolute ridiculousness. I think it's stupid. I think it should be done away with. I don't support international teams. I don't support England. I don't support Scotland. I don't support Wales or Northern Ireland or Republic of Ireland. I just think they should all be got rid of. Because at the end of the day, it's Rangers that pay wages. It's us, you know, the clubs that the players are signed to. International football is an utter waste of time and effort. So, first of all, Ross Mccausland. Now, obviously, Ross has had a season where he has suffered from a fair few injuries of recent times, mainly leading from that horrid tackle by Dan Casey, which, as we know, nothing was done about. So, Ross Mccausland obviously was called up by Northern Ireland, and even though players are suffering from injuries, they're still expected to travel with their international team. So Ross did travel to meet up with Northern Ireland. However, he has now been returned to Auchenhowie, to Rangers, for him to continue to undergo treatment to improve his rehab. Now, obviously, I know there's a worry there. Maybe some of us would actually rather have him treated by the Northern Ireland medical staff, given Rangers medical staff's history of getting players in with a couple of weeks injury and suddenly 6 months later they're still out injured. So Ross is back. He is going to go in treatment. It will give the Rangers medical staff and manager Philippe Clement time to assess him and time to work with him and get him back fit post-international break. Not having Ross off, risking himself getting further injured or injuring himself further in training is a good thing. And a very positive thing that he is back at the club now. Like I said, he is our player. We pay his wages at the end of the day. Yes, I'm sure he has a loyalty to Northern Ireland, being the fact he is from Northern Ireland. But at the end of the day, we are his employers, and his first loyalty should be to Rangers, not to Northern Ireland. Now, another player who is off on international duty with a full national team now he's now a full international, is Mohamed Diomande. Now, I'm sure a lot of you remember Mohamed Diomande wearing an Ivory Coast top to poke fun at Leon Balogun when the Ivory Coast defeated Nigeria. And obviously Balogun then saying, "I'm back training today. I hope you've got your shin pads on, Wian." Basically saying, no, he's going to get him. But Mohamed Diomande, who was born in the Ivory Coast, he was born in I'm going to try and massacre this name, Yopouang or Yopougon in the Ivory Coast, and has played underage football for the Ivory Coast at under 23 level, has been called up to represent Ghana. That's right, he's been called up to represent Ghana. Now, this has come as a bit of a surprise to many people, obviously feeling that, his first loyalty was to the Ivory Coast. Like I said, there was that picture of him kissing the Ivory Coast badge and, really showing himself to be a son of the Ivory Coast. He has, like I said, international allegiances, which many people are stunned about. Given the fact, obviously, that he was born in the Ivory Coast. Now, Rangers have got Diomande in on a loan with an obligation. That's not right, not an option, but an obligation to purchase. Diomande has played a massive number of games since he's come up, and his form there hasn't earned him a call from the Ivory Coast. Now, some people obviously feel that Mohamed Diamande's form has suffered and he's not played too great in the last few games. I think, I'm reading a lot of crap online, and I know social media is a poisonous place. People slagging him off, saying he's crap, etc., really getting at him. I think that's wrong. Give the guy a break. He came in November. He hasn't played football since November. This is his first intense period. He had played a full season before that. You've got to give him time to adapt and to change over football. If, any player we bring in who is coming from a foreign league and you just slaughter him every time, he's not going to settle in, and that is not the best way. Now, the Ghana team have obviously called up Diomande. The official Ghana Twitter or X or whatever it's called read, Bolivia-based David Akalogo, Norgesland's Ibrahim Osman, France-based Nathaniel Adejayi, who Rangers were linked with, and Diomande Mohamed of Rangers of Scotland have been named in Ghana's 26-man squad for this month's international friendlies against Nigeria and Uganda. It's come as, like I said, it has come as a surprise that he has obviously been up for Ghana. Now, I think a lot of this comes back to the fact that Diomande did go to the Dare to Dream Academy in Ghana. He came up through the system there. He spent a lot of his young life in Ghana. Obviously, it's naturalising him and qualifying him for Ghana. Now, the opportunity to play international football has been very attractive to Mohamed Diomande, and he will answer the call, so therefore becoming a full Ghana international. There is still, even if he does play in these two games for Ghana, Nigeria, and Uganda, I think I'm correct in saying he can still switch back to play for the Ivory Coast. Why? because until you've represented your country at full international level, I think I'm right in saying you cannot, you can still change your national allegiance if you are qualified via birth, residency, or parents or grandparents for another country. I mean, look at Declan Rice. Declan Rice played friendlies for the Republic of Ireland. He also came up for the Republic of Ireland youth systems and then switched allegiances to play for England. There is an ongoing debate down south over Leeds United's Archie Gray, who is part of the very famous Gray family, Eddie Gray, Frank Gray, etc. He is currently representing England 21s. Scotland are trying to get him to come and play for them. So at the end of the day, he has been fast tracked now for the England youth setup, I think, to try and get him into an England squad ASAP to pin him down to England. So look, there is an ongoing debate over this. Now, there is obviously lots of debates over the rights and wrongs of being able to switch international allegiances. My personal opinion, like I said, I don't really care because I don't like international football. But if I did have an opinion, it would be that you should play for the country of your birth, or you can play for the country of your parents' birth. So that would obviously get around a situation where, say you are, born, your parents are from, let's say, France, and you are living in England. So you're born in England, but your parents are French, or your family are French. Then that it would, follow on that you could represent the country of your parents. But I get that, and that's fine. That's fair enough. But obviously, the country of where you were born as well. I don't think you should be going around looking at, well, I've lived there and worked there for 7 years, and I lived there and worked there for 7 years, and I had a great grandfather. That's ridiculous. I think it should be just your birth and your parents' birth, and that should be it. Well, guys, let me know what you think about the stories we've covered in this video this morning. Obviously, drop me a comment down below, or this afternoon or this evening, depends obviously when you're picking up the video. The international break, it kind of has, it's frustrating. It is frustrating. I mean, I think we'd all like to get this game played. We were obviously back on top of the league where we belong. We'd all like to get this half of the season done and then get into that post split fixtures. It's going to be an intense run through now until the end of the season, with the 5 games remaining before the split, and then obviously the post split fixtures, the Scottish Cup semi-final in April, and then obviously hopefully the Scottish Cup final as well. It's going to be a huge period for the club, a massive period for the club. But one big thing needs to be that these next 5 fixtures need to result in 15 points. I think the real must win out of these next 5 for me is that game on the 7th of April at Ibrox. If it was a case that they come and they beat us again, I think that says a lot for the mentality of this team and for the fact that there is a mental block there. There does at this moment in time, after looking at that fixture at Parkhead, after looking at that fixture at Ibrox at the start of the season, seems to be a bit of a mental block that when it actually matters, there is something stopping us from kicking on to the next level as regards beating them. That game on the 7th is an absolute must win. Yes, okay, I get that a draw would maintain the status quo, 2 points clear, blah, blah, blah. But it's not about that. It's about laying down that mark, about showing them we are back on top, about putting down a kind of season-defining win. A win there takes you 5 points clear. And that's got to be the aim. I don't buy into this a draw will do philosophy. I think that's utterly ridiculous. And I think the sooner we put them back in their box, we put them back into a situation where they realize that that this is serious, that they are still thinking. I guarantee this. I don't know how they think because they're very weird, but I can guarantee you they're still thinking they're going to slip up. We're going to beat them, get back top of the league. That's because that's what they'll do. They'll bottle it. That's what they're thinking. That is what they're thinking. I guarantee it. And we need to make sure we don't allow them back in. Well, guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thanks for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation. As always, if you can smash the sub, that would be utterly brilliant. On the way out, 2 jobs. I always ask of you. Number 1, smash the like. And number 2, remember always, we are